Did you guys record the covers actually?
Yeah, well, we didn't do them that week. During one of the breaks, after Steve had left to go home, our engineer stayed, and we had like 4 days, 5 days, and we recorded 12 songs. You know, and we did a whole bunch of covers that week, and they're ending up they'll be B-sides on all the singles, and I think actually the European version of the album has extra tracks on it.
Which songs can we expect?
We did a version of Big Yellow Taxi, the Joni Mitchell song, and we did Start Again, which is by Teenage Fan Club.
No kidding.
It's
Why the Teenage Fan Club? I mean, that's a special show. I mean, they're a great band, of course, but
I have every record. I'm a huge fan. It's the first song on Songs from Northern Britain. So we did this really cool, like almost like Crosby, Stills, Nash version of it. Acoustic guitars and mandolins and some piano. And we did Someday I Will Treat You Good by Sparkle Horse. But we did that in a really dark version because it's really up-tempo, kind of fun rocker on the record. But in reading the lyrics, I realized, this is a murder ballad. This is about killing his girlfriend and dumping her on the side of the road. So we did it as this really dark, like really upright bass, very simple drum sound, a mandolin and acoustic guitar. It's pretty cool.
Hey, talk about your music again. I mean, I got 15 songs here. I'm told
well, it's really only a few of them on the record. There's really only 13 songs on the record.
So going down to New York is going to be on a soundtrack, right?
See, this thing is this CD is a huge mistake. It was a CD that we made and distributed just to band members because we had mixed Miami, but we weren't sure about it. So we went back to an older mixes and wanted to hear them. So we put 2 older mixes on this thing.
So the mix I was listening to is an old mix of Miami.
No, neither of the mixes on here is the one on the album. We were just trying these 2 out, and it's not supposed to be at the top of the album. It's in the middle, but it was sitting there because we were listening to it. And then going into New York, we just mixed. It's a song we did for this soundtrack.
What movie?
It's a Mr. Deeds. It's Adam Sandler's new movie.
Oh, wow.
And it's a remake of Frank Capra's Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, the Gary Cooper movie. So we wrote the theme to it, and which is not a universal record. So the problem is like somehow it's like, and someone in our office must have. This CD only went to band members to decide on whether to use the mixes or not, which we decided no, and we put Miami in the middle of the record where it belongs. And somehow this got out, and someone in our office sent it to the Geffen to Interscope in America, and they must have sent it to International in England and said this is the version of the record, and then they sent it out to every journalist, and it's the fault of someone in our office or someone in Interscope in London. I mean, in a. I don't know where, but like this is not the record. That's the wrong version of Miami, and Miami's in the middle of the record, and that's not even on the record.
But I mean, it sounds really, really good already. I mean,
oh yeah, no, I'm saying the record's great. Don't get me wrong, I love
even the Miami mix. I mean, I think.
It's a good mix. It's just like that was the first mix we did, and it's really lo-fi sounding, and the later mixes really sounds a lot bigger, more beautiful. The vocal sounds a lot better.
You guys mix yourself actually?
No, hell no. In fact, I don't have the slightest idea how to mix a record. No, we Jack Joseph Puig mixed the record, who I think is maybe the finest mixer out there.
Because a lot of people don't realize that it's really important to have good mix, and that it's really, really difficult.
Oh, especially in a band like ours where you have 7 guys, and there's a lot of stuff going on. You know, like Miami, there's just a sea of stuff happening on that song. I mean,
it's a big song.
Yeah, I mean, someone like Jack takes the mess and makes it sound great. You know, like it's supposed to.
Hard Candy, why Hard Candy?
Wow.
Title of the album. It's a good song, of course.
The song is really about memory, and so is the album. It's about difficult memories, sweet and difficult memories. I realized when I wrote the song that it really summed up a lot of the record. It's funny, the last 2 songs written for the record end up being the first and the last song on the record. Because Hard Candy was written second to last, and the last one was Holiday in Spain.
Let's see, because for me it's like the first time I was listening to it, it's a great sound. I think this album can bring you guys really far again.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Do you set out to do that? I mean, do you care about your success anymore? Because I mean, you guys are obviously huge.
Oh, I care, but I don't think you set out to do that. I mean, not while you're making a record. I mean, you couldn't. How would you know what to record? I mean, you start out to make a record, you know it's not coming out for a year. Because you're going to record it and write it, and that's going to take time. Record company's going to take 4 to 6 months to put it out. So, I mean, the world is going to be an entirely different place by the time it comes out. So, I would have no idea how to do it. Plus, you know, how would you guess? Like, you could try and make a record based on what everybody else is doing right then, but then it would be sounding like everybody else and not you. I think we set out to accomplish different things every record, and that may or may not coincide with what the world wants to hear. You know, on the first album, we really wanted to strip down because we were signed 4 months after we got together as a band. It was really quick, you know. We had a big local audience because we all came from other bands, and record companies came to see us. We had a lot of good songs, but we didn't know how to be a band, so we really stripped everything down. And we made this really quiet album so that we could learn to play with each other by listening carefully, you know. And for whatever reason, that year, that was what everybody wanted to hear, you know. You get to be the center of the universe for a year. On this album, I really wanted to make, like, I'd had this great conversation with Paul McCartney a couple years ago at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I left thinking, man, that guy is such a treasure. And no one appreciates what he does, which is to write these perfect melodies that you can't get out of your head for 40 years, you know? Things that stick with you 40 years later. And I thought, man, I want to do that. I've never forced myself to discipline that way. Every song on this album is going to have a melody that you cannot get out of your head. And that's going to be the beginning of every song. And I'm not going to use a song unless I can come up with a killer melody. Because sometimes in the past, it's been okay to have... I've just followed my moods. It's been okay to have mood pieces that were more about, like, the mood and the lyric, you know? But this album was going to be all about melodies. And
you can write some damn good melodies, if I might say so.
I'm really, really, really happy with it. It was just kind of about, like... make your imagination sit that way. Like, just have fun for the next year finding things you feel like humming in your head, and then hum them to yourself until you get the lyrics, you know? And that's what I did. I just wrote, like, songs that I couldn't get out of my head. And it was really kind of cool. It was a different sort of thing. And I tried...
Did it really, like, pop up in your head? I mean, you would just, like, sit in the car, walk the street, and suddenly you have a melody?
Well, no, I was, like, actively doing it. You know, you're really thinking of stuff all the time. And also, like, I just sit down at the piano to play a lot. I mean, I come up with songs. It's just that if it wasn't a great melody, I didn't go any further with it. I would just toss things if they weren't. Like that thing, like Holiday in Spain originally. I wrote it, you know, in a few hours, and I just thought it's terrible. Well, it wasn't, and it probably wasn't terrible. It's just that it wasn't what I was looking for, you know, and so I threw it out. And then when I came back, I accidentally invented music, and now it sounds different, and it's a great melody. You know.
Hey, how was McCartney? I mean, he was obviously an influence. I mean, it must be special to talk to somebody like him, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was really nice to me, too. He's just really cool. I thought he was great, you know. I mean, I had been at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it was a little while after Linda McCartney had died, and he looked really in pain at it, you know. It was very difficult for him. I think it was a little humiliating, the experience of having Lennon go in first anyways. It's like, I don't know why you would ever put one of them in before the other. It's just stupid. You know, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's not like, I don't know. Anyways, it seems silly to me. And he looked old, you know. And then at some point, Billy Joel, you know, they had the jam at the end, and he didn't go up. And but Billy Joel sat down at the piano in the middle of it and started playing Let It Be and sang the first verse. And you could see him think about it, and then he walked up on the stage and he sang the rest of the song. And then he turned around to the band and said something to them and counted off and went, 1 for the money, 2, like went into blue suede shoes or something. And all of a sudden it was like, well, I mean, the wrinkles are still there, but the guy's 20 years old. He literally looked like the kid in the Cavern Club, those pictures you see. So I was upstairs in this hotel room later on. My friend, who's this journalist, took me up there, and it was Bono's hotel room. And it was Bono and his wife and Bruce Springsteen and Neil Young and Billy Joel and McCartney, me, a couple other people I can't really remember. And there was a bunch of people in the room actually, but those are the people that matter to me. That were there. You know, there's actually some very famous journal. I was hanging out. Dave Marsh was there too, as well as Bill Flanagan, who took me up there, the writers. I started talking to Paul, and I told him about that. You know, you just look like you just lost 30 years, 40 years, started singing. And he said, well, you know, it does that for you, doesn't it? I mean, it keeps you where you were when you wrote it, you know. And we talked about some stuff. I told him how we accidentally almost ripped off. You know, when we were doing Recovering the Satellites, we had the Mellotron line that opens the record. That's the beginning of Catapult. And it seemed so familiar the whole time we were making the record, and we just could never place it. So, and then right before we were done, we realized, oh my God, it's almost note for note the opening of Venus and Mars. And so we changed it, you know. You know, so it wasn't, you know. And that's the one that's on there now. But it's still, if you listen to it, it's close, you know. And I told him about that, and he thought that was really funny. He thought that was really cool. I think he said he knew. I don't know if he knew the song or not, but I can't remember. But I just left thinking about like how great he is, and just like this thing he does, because people are always into like being deep and dark and great poets. They want to call lyricists poets. I'm not a poet. I'm not even interested in being a poet. I love poetry, but I don't write it. And you know what? Neither is Bob Dylan. He's a songwriter, and that's what it is.
And do you ever think back at the days when you were like thinking that was a dream and maybe impossible?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. Except for your life happens in gradual steps for you, so it all seems sort of like natural eventually. I mean, if I look, this is ridiculous to be where we are right now. And on the other hand, it's like I can see exactly how we got there. So, it's both a miracle and it makes a lot of sense. We certainly worked hard enough.